Railways and railroad building have played a large role in the development of Canada and the nation, and it linked Canada into national policy. This can be seen in four ways. The first two: Canada's first constitution, the British North American Act, included a guarantee that a railway would be built between central Canada and the Maritimes. Secondly, one of the main reasons that encouraged Prince Edward Islands to join Canada was to take care of the island's debts from their previous efforts to build one. Thirdly, the settlement in the West, the scandal known as the Pacific Scandal, included railways. And the scandal, it involved John A. Macdonald being accused of inappropriate involvement in the building of the Canadian Pacific Railway. Although, significantly, the railway and the scandal showed how crucial it was to the development of Canada. Why did the Canadian government want to build a railway? Well, there are two main reasons. One being the government and John A. Macdonald promised a railway to the east for BC. After Confederation, construction of the railway was promised to begin within 2 years, but be done within 10. Secondly, Canada also wanted to claim its territory in the West because the fear of manifest destiny was still present. Because of these two reasons, Macdonald and his government wanted to start right away, meaning they would need a company, and a good company, to fund and build the railway. Sir Hugh Allan, he was to lead the Canadian Pacific Railway Company and was given the contract on January 31st, 1973 from John A. Macdonald. John A. Macdonald and the government just gave Allan the job, which meant the House of Commons did not need to vote on a contract. Sir Hugh Allan had a very challenging task ahead, especially with the geographic barriers in BC. Building a railway through mountains and many different terrains would be difficult. But Macdonald wanted the building to go on. Macdonald was the leader of the Liberal Conservative Party, and in the election of 1872, his party won. Although Macdonald and his party, they barely won. And one of the reasons was because of his handling on the Red River Resistance. Also, Macdonald's handlings of the Washington Treaty signed in 1871 that was supposed to give Canada compensation and wealth. But unfortunately, after the Civil War, the treaty fell short, and Macdonald was to blame. However, through some donations that helped him promote and advertise his party, he was able to pull ahead of the Liberals and win his election. So, in 1872, Macdonald and his party won, although their victory did not last. In 1873, there was a massive uproar in the House of Commons. A Liberal member of Parliament said that he had evidence that Sir Hugh Allan had been given the Canadian Pacific Railway contract in return for political donations for approximately $350,000. $350,000. In other words, the Liberals claimed that Hugh Allan was given the contract since he paid large sums of money that helped Macdonald and the Conservatives. Macdonald, he had accepted dishonest and illegal funds. Macdonald claimed he was innocent and that he had no part in the scandal, until evidence of receipts of money from Allan became public. Another piece of evidence, a telegram. And the telegram said, "I must have another $10,000. This will be the last calling. Do not fail me. Answer today." And that was Sir John A. Macdonald to Hugh Allan. And after all of this was released to the public, This became known to everyone as the Pacific Scandal. Many people in the government were furious that MacDonald would take such funds for his party's advancement. Soon, after 5 months of trouble, MacDonald appointed 3 judges to investigate the charges that were pressed upon him. The report came back in November, and they said that MacDonald was guilty. MacDonald knew he was in trouble, and he knew that the House of Commons would take a vote on if his party stays or not. And he knew if Parliament was to vote, that they would vote no. So instead, MacDonald decided to resign as Prime Minister. MacDonald could no longer regain his confidence in the House of Commons. John A. Macdonald resigned as Prime Minister. After MacDonald resigned, Alexander Mackenzie, the leader of the Liberal Party, came in power. Unlike MacDonald, Mackenzie thought the Transcontinental Railway was a waste of time and money. The lack of action for the Transcontinental Railway resulted in a small economic depression and also many threats from BC to succeed from Canada. Soon after that, a few years later, in 1878, John Macdonald knew that the railway was essential to the survival of Canada. So Macdonald came up with the idea of national policy. National policy was made because Canadian goods were incapable of competing with American products coming into the country at an increasing rate. Macdonald proposed a policy that would resolve the problem by raising tariffs in the Canadian industry. Soon after, thanks to the national policy, John A. Macdonald was re-elected. After he was re-elected, he continued and finished building the Canadian Pacific Railway, and he remained Prime Minister. The railway managed to reach all across Canada. If John A. Macdonald was not re-elected, Canada probably wouldn't be as big as it is today.